We are going to be talking from three fantastic sellers who have all hit a pivotal point. They've joined a club, if you will, 10 million or above. It's coveted club. These are sellers that have earned their way into what we would call the big leagues. And I'll try to tease out some of their top secrets, maybe call them out on a little bit, and try to get some real insights, some knowledge that you guys can use to help grow your business. We've got, going down the line, I'm just going to introduce you guys, your names, and then if you could take a second to just tell everybody who you are and about your business. And the format of this is, we've got some questions here. We're going to start off with those, but then we're going to turn it over to you guys so that you can start answering questions. So we'll do it the same way, or asking questions. You'll do it the same way and just line up at the microphone. Sound good? All right, so first, Michael Ward.
Hi, I'm Michael Ward, owner of Best Costume and Toy Deals. Been selling online since 1998. Been selling on Amazon since 2011. And we sell mainly in the categories of toys and costumes.
Barry.
Hi, I'm Barry Lampert, and I've been selling on Amazon for about 10 years now. In the health and beauty category, top 300 Amazon seller.
Boom. And Mendy.
Mendy Holtzman, top 50 seller. Sorry, Barry.
Ah! Ooh.
And we've been with
started.
Amazon. We've been with Amazon for about. It's not a debate. I'm sorry. We've been with Amazon for about 10 years, and have grown substantially year over year. In our last year, we've grown in triple digits.
Fantastic.
We primarily sell unlocked cell phones, and we dabble in electronics and many different types of products. But primarily, unlocked cell phones is that's our main focus.
One of the things that I think is really interesting is that these guys, all different categories, but some of the tactics used to get to that level are transferable regardless of the category. So I think it's great. First question I want to dive into, we've talked a little bit about it. There has been a lot of talk in the past 6 months since Amazon updated its terms of service regarding reviews. We all know reviews are incredibly important. They definitely drive customer conversion, and Amazon continues to have a spotlight on it, I think, if you will, in terms of protecting the customer experience. First they made it a policy violation to offer any kind of incentive. Now, most recently, they've been targeting the actual language where sellers are using feedback requests, asking for reviews. What are you guys doing about reviews? And if you could each go down and talk to us a little bit about how you've pivoted since the reviews change and what you're doing now to get reviews.
I think after that introduction, they're putting it on me right now.
You're the top 50,
Top 50
so let's
seller,
go.
So teach us.
Yeah.
So for us, reviews, it really dictates the trend of a product. When a product has, a 4.2 average, and then it becomes a 4 average, 3.5. Obviously, as it's declining, we know how the rank is going to convert and how the product is probably declining, or customers are simply not happy. And with Amazon in general, the best lifestyle to follow is the Amazon lifestyle of customer first and work your way backwards and figure out the details a bit later. So the reviews gives you that direct link to the customer. That's a customer's way of communicating with you and giving you all the information that you need to make smart decisions. So we do take reviews very seriously. We always encourage customers to give us the feedback so we can collect that data and make good business decisions. In terms of verified purchases, I think it's great that Amazon had cut back on that. And cut back in the sense where, people were leaving bad feedback to be able to manipulate their competitors instead of actually, giving real feedback on the product. So.
Right. Barry?
Yeah. So we sell a lot of commodity type products, so I guess the value of the review isn't quite as high as it might be for some other sellers. We don't really focus too much on it. The one thing that we do that I will share is we sort of qualify our buyers by seeking out only the buyers who have already left us positive feedback and going to them and saying, hey, one more time, we really appreciate the positive feedback that you've left us. Would you be interested in leaving us a review? Mm-hmm. And the reason why we do that is because while we may dive into feedback at some point during the discussion today, but whereas feedback can be relatively easily taken away, I'm not going there yet.
But just for clarification, you're talking about seller feedback, not on a product.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that
Okay.
if I've correct. If I've gotten the positive seller feedback.
Yes.
Okay. So
I see.
now
Okay.
I know that this customer is a happy customer. So I'll go after those customers specifically
Asking
to
for a
ask them
product
for
review.
reviews because I know that they're happy with the experience that they've had.
That makes sense.
And I do that because getting rid of those reviews is so difficult. That's
Got
a
it.
little tidbit.
Very cool. So you target great customer experiences and then go back to them and ask them for product reviews. Do you do anything in the language, or is it just straight up like?
Yeah, I mean,
Give
I
us a
play around
review.
with it a little bit, try to see what works and what doesn't. I think trying to get too creative is probably less helpful.
Mhm.
And I think that the one thing that I found that works best is sort of an honest, friendly, sort of like we're chatting kind of thing.
Got it.
You know, hey, thanks so much. You know, that less formal.
Okay.
And short. You know,
Perfect.
Nobody wants. I mean, we all get, tons of emails every day. We don't want to read through your drivel. Just get to the point, and sometimes hopefully you'll get that review.
Great.
So our business is commodities also. We deal with a lot of licensed products, so most of the reviews are organic. The people leave them simply because they like a brand, they like a toy, they like something. We use the reviews more on our back end to determine what we're going to be purchasing. So when we see products with high reviews, we're going to buy more of that product, sell more. When the reviews start to decline, especially at kind of at that 3.0 mark, if a review falls below 3.0, we tend to look at it and generally make the decision not to continue to carry that product, because that generally means that that customer is not happy with it, which means we're going to end up getting negative feedback or returns or stuff like that. So we avoid less than 3 review products, and then we go after products that are high review.
Do you have a system in place to monitor the reviews? Because obviously you didn't invest in the product when it was lower than 3. So how are you tracking that?
Well, so with our products all being licensed, whenever it's new, we pretty much buy everything that's new because it's the new hot license.
And then you watch it decline.
And then we watch it decline. And generally, especially with, licensed goods where kids love it today and 6 months from now could care less about it, you can see the reviews decline quickly.
Got it. Fidget spinners.
Yeah, fidget spinners. Fidget spinners is a perfect example of what's hot today. But, the schools start banning them, the kids love them, summer comes, Christmas comes, and I guarantee you by January, no one's going to want a fidget spinner.
I think you're the 3rd or 4th person that have mentioned that in the last couple of days. Very interesting. Mike, you mentioned the negative customer return, or the customer reviews starts to trigger returns. If you guys could, talk to us about the return process and what at your level, because obviously the concession rate on these products, you've got to be dealing with it. How does the returns impact your business? What are you doing to be proactive about it so that it's not too damaging to profit? Talk a little bit about that.
So returns is a natural part of Amazon. Unfortunately, they're going to happen. A previous seminar I had spoke about, you can't get upset about returns. You just have to think of them as a cost of doing business. Our average returns, especially during the Halloween season, we get a lot of customers that buy a costume, wear it, return it. They know they're cheating the system. They're getting a free basic rental, and they know what they're doing, and there's nothing you or me are going to do to fight it. In Amazon's theory, they just want you to mark it off as a cost of doing business. They don't want you crying about it, screaming about it, or calling them up and saying what they're doing is wrong. What they want you to do is absorb it. We go through the return process and we look at our returns. If it's not saleable, we trash it, take the write-off, move on. If it is saleable, we recycle it back into the system and send it right back into Amazon. Unfortunately, returns are a part of the business. It's a cost of doing business. Just like you pay rent, a light bill, there's a percentage of your sales are going to be returns.
Barry?
I would add that I think returns are going to depend a lot on what category you sell in.
Sure.
We're in what we sell, it's kind of low.
It is.
It's really low.
Right.
I've sold electronics in the past, and it was higher. And I know people that sell clothing, it's insanely high. Just kind of the nature of the beast. But like Michael said, you can't get worked up about it. You can't.
Do you guys have? Sorry to cut you off. Do
Yeah,
you
go
have
ahead.
any tools in place? Because I know, in my selling account, I'll monitor customer returns, and then if they haven't been returned in that 45-day period, I've got to open a ticket to get the money back because that's what the Amazon policy is. Do you have any systems in place?
This was
for
something
sort of
that I
thing?
discussed when I did my speech, is we have employees, Amazon auditors, and we look at every return. When the email comes, because everybody gets an email that says, we gave the customer a refund $30. we automatically file that into a email file, and it sits in there for 45 days. After 45 days, we go through, and that Amazon auditor's job is to run every order number returned in the system and make sure it's returned. If it wasn't returned, we open a case and say we want the money back.
Got it.
And we do the same thing.
Same thing. Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Mendy?
So there was a scenario the other day where we had talked about, we were trying to explain the full circle that it takes when a product goes out the door, gets to a customer, and comes back. We were trying to explain the cost of doing business to someone where we showed how much that actually costs to a business when there's a return, the amount of hands it has to go through, the purchase order, receiving, shipping, etc. Obviously, you want to do whatever you can to try to prevent the return from happening to begin with. So we take the time to do as much as we can beforehand, finesse the listing, accurately describe what you're selling. Anything that you can do in order to make sure that the customer is getting exactly what they have. And as Michael said and Barry had said, there's always going to be returns. Sometimes you're going to have to eat it. Sometimes you're going to try to flip it at a minimal loss. But if you can avoid the return from the get-go, that's going to save you a...
So going upstream and
Yes.
fixing it before
Very
it's a
much being
problem.
proactive as opposed to being
Yeah,
reactive.
let me add. So we sell, for example, Power Ranger costumes, and the manufacturer puts the costume in a poly bag, and then they zip tie the mask to the outside. I have no idea why, but Amazon loves when you ship it into the Amazon warehouse to ship one person a mask and one person the costume. They never understand that zip tie means this is one product. And we were getting a ton of returns on this one particular ASIN, and we were like, why were we getting so many returns? And we went through the return reasons, and all of them said missing mask, So we realized the problem was missing the mask. So we went out of our way and said, okay, how do we fix this? So you buy poly bags, you rebag so you put the bag and the mask in another bag, so whenever we send that product into Amazon, we bag the mask with the costume. Now, granted, that takes a little more cost, a little more time out of our pocket. However, maybe it takes 5 cents to rebag an item versus $5 to get a return. I'd much rather pay the 5 cents up front than deal
Sure.
with the return.
Absolutely. Shifting gears a little bit, to get to the 10 million level, you need money because you need to be able to constantly invest in inventory, right? And I think that one of the things that I've seen at this level is a really good FBA strategy. And I think what we'll do, just a heads up, we'll take this as the last question for me, and then I'd like to turn it over to you guys. So if you want to get to the mic, if you have questions, please go ahead and let's start doing that. But if you could, talk a little bit about your FBA strategy. And don't just say like, hey, we've got an FBA strategy. But I mean, are you running long, like 90 days, 180 days of inventory? Are you going really lean? I mean, because if you go long, you've got a lot of money tied up in your inventory. So you can't necessarily pivot to get new inventory. But if you go short, you run the risk of running out of stock, that sort of stuff. Can you talk a little bit about what your FBA strategy looks like and how it's evolved from a 1 million to a 10 million seller?
Yeah, this is a little bit of a difficult question in our industry because the costume industry, we put our purchase orders in January and February, and once you get to a level with the manufacturers where, you're trustworthy and they're going to give you the line of credit and they're going to give you the terms, they're shipping you Halloween in March. So this is May, and we've probably been shipped 60% of our Halloween inventory. We have to keep a warehouse for that. So we have to, a lot of the licensed goods is a one-shot deal where we buy it, ship it in, and when it sells, it sells. We can hope to try and go back and get more, but generally the manufacturer's out. Now, when you get to a point where if it is a hot enough license, we will then go to the manufacturer and start direct importing our own to guarantee product, but that's a whole nother game.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you had asked about the length of time. You said something like 180 days.
Yeah, I just...
that's a little crazy.
Yeah,
but,
it isn't crazy.
yeah.
But I do know sellers that think that that's what they need to be doing.
That's insane. Yeah. I mean, it depends. I mean, I guess a lot of sellers may be relying on Amazon's warehouse sort of as their own warehouse, like Michael was just talking about.
Sure.
Kind of running out of room. But if that's not a constraint, and it shouldn't be, because Amazon's kind of expensive when it comes to storing your goods, and they don't like you to keep it around the warehouse for the obvious reasons. But I mean, we're shooting for about 30 to 45 days.
30 to 45 days?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of long, actually. And I'm actually working on trying to shorten that a little bit. And we use, shameless plug, we do use Feedvisor for the replenish reports. I mean, that's, it's important to know what it is that you're what it is that you need to send and why you need to send it.
The replenishment report is amazing, I will say that, but I think the key takeaway from that is that you do use a tool.
Absolutely.
That-
You can't guess. I mean, you have to know.
Right.
You have to see what's going on.
Oh, yeah. As far as the tool, you know, you have to have some kind of tool. Watching all those ASINs, all those SKUs, and trying to figure out what to send in is nearly impossible. And there, you know, there's 100 different tools out there that allow you to understand. But just knowing, and if the people that were sitting in on my seminar, you know, when I have large inventory of an item, my general rule is 30 days. So whatever I ship in today, I want it to last 30 days and know that it's going to be out, because I don't want to pay storage, whether it's the monthly storage or the long-term storage.
So you run a pretty short 30-day. You're 30 to 45 days.
Yeah. And I think I just want to prompt Mendy, because I actually want him to talk about it, because we're looking at starting with Seller Fulfilled Prime now, which I think is a complete game changer. And Mendy said that he's actually started using it. So
the way I heard the question is that it's two-part, right? You don't want to tie up your cash flow into inventory, dead inventory, or inventory that's not going to be able to give you a return in the near future.
Right.
And the other one is about strategizing to have enough inventory levels without aged inventory. So to those 2 points, firstly, it's a different answer depending on if you're a brand owner, right? The worst thing that can happen to you is that you stock out of inventory.
Right.
And you're not really worried so much about the price changing or, you know, something happening to the inventory. You're going to have to get rid of it one way or another. So you kind of have the luxury of being able to sit on it a little bit more and strategize. A reseller, like ourselves and many others, for us, the prices are so volatile. If you have something one day, it could be kicking ass, and then a week later, it's not going to be doing so well.
Sure.
You don't have that luxury. So to that point, I say reinvest, or rather, keep your inventory levels at a you know, somewhat comfortable pace, but at the same time, you know when you're going to have too much inventory, when it becomes excess, and you know, reinvest it into some new inventory, get rid of the old ones, sometimes at a loss, and then reinvest in the new ones. Barry mentioned Seller Fulfill Prime. So we had recently gotten involved in Seller Fulfill Prime. I have a question for the room, though, kind of to wake you guys up. How many people here are using FBA?
I think everyone in the room's raising
Everybody
their
in
hand.
the room. How many people are using Seller Fulfill Prime?
Maybe,
Maybe 10,
yeah.
15. Is that right?
Yeah.
So FBA is obviously, it's amazing for many reasons. I know some people had had questions about Seller Fulfill Prime and if it really is the equivalence of FBA. For us, it's been a game changer because you're not tying up your inventory. You're not worried about sending inventory to FBA for holiday season and it getting backed up because they're receiving millions and millions of products every day. So Seller Fulfill Prime has been a game changer. And
Are you
probably talk
using
about it.
regionalized buy box?
So what we had done was we had structured it because the common question is how does it not cut into your margin if you're offering product to ship out from, you know, Florida to Washington?
Right.
How are you doing that? So you can actually break it up into different templates. We had done that. Our high-end product goes across the country, whereas our lower-end product, we'll offer Seller Fulfill Prime just regionally,
Got it.
close by. And you always have the option to send inventory to FBA and keep your inventory levels significantly lower. It's not your only option. That's been a game changer for us, and I strongly recommend it. It's a little tough on the logistics, but to maintain it, it's actually fairly easy. And Amazon gives you pretty good rates, and I strongly recommend it. I think it's going to be a game changer for all your businesses. So
I definitely think Seller Fulfilled Prime is in the roadmap in terms of expanding the services that Amazon offers, especially as they look at what I've kind of called micro FCs. So you're in Florida, and so your inventory there at Seller Fulfilled Prime, it becomes like this micro FC. And then as they start to roll out Prime Now, I think that is where that really starts to play into it.
yeah, with the future being, you know, get my product within 2 hours, you're going to have to be able to do Prime on your own, not just rely on Amazon to do it. And obviously
Exactly.
they help you in any way that they can, but that is the future. And the number one way to succeed on Amazon is by constantly evolving with Amazon. And that seems to be the new direction. So.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and start over here, and then let's just go back and forth. The light makes it a little difficulty. And then if you could speak into the mic, because it's we don't have the monitors here, so it's.
Sure. So I have a twofold question. Our company sells in a highly volatile sector of consumer electronics. So we're looking to build our brand equity to set ourselves apart with selling MAP products. So I've heard some conflicting information today about requesting product reviews. I believe one of the panelists stated that they look at the seller feedback that they receive from a customer, and they immediately know that that customer is willing to give feedback, so they're going to request a product review from that customer. However, in another panel today that I sat on, they said, don't do that. So I'm trying to see exactly which information to follow for that. And two, we've actually been asked by pretty well-known manufacturers to assist in building the brand reputation on Amazon. What would your suggestion be in order to actually go about that without violating the Amazon terms of services?
Which part?
Well, why did you say you shouldn't do that? I'm kind of curious.
About the requesting reviews? Just because there's been some internal language at Amazon saying that there's been sellers that are abusing the buyer-seller messaging tool and saying, being really aggressive in requesting reviews, and so that there's been kind of a spotlight shined on that.
It's definitely against Amazon's policy to ask for a positive review.
Right.
Sending out an email, it's strongly encouraged, actually, by Amazon. It's kind of like having a main image that it has to be in a pure white background, where it's a violation to have it as a lifestyle image, whereas that as a secondary image is strongly encouraged. It's kind of like you have to figure out the differences. But when it comes to Amazon's policy, you're not allowed to ask for a review directly. What you are allowed to ask is if the process is smooth and we encourage the feedback as a seller, and you're not actually pointing them in a direction of leaving a positive review for you, that's manipulation.
Yes.
There's a very fine line between, you had said, well, if a seller leaves me a positive review, then I should ask for a product review. The fine line is yeah, that's great because you know that they're already willing to leave a review, but you can't use that positive feedback as the catalyst, even though we all do. But if Amazon knows, so you can't say, hey, you left me this positive review, so can you give me a product review? What you have to do is you have to separate the two, church and state. Product review, seller review, don't intermix them in any way whatsoever.
I would add also that, just from a pure business perspective, sure, go ahead and build up those brands on Amazon for them, but make sure you got an exclusivity contract off of Amazon. Because if you're building up that title page, that product page, technically anybody, as per Amazon, anybody can sell on that page.
They could turn around, you do all the work, you build the pages, you build the reviews, you build everything, and next thing you know, that manufacturer is soliciting everybody in this room. And you have no way of, defending that.
Or the manufacturer decides to go direct, and which happened to me before. Great. Let's switch sides here. Yes.
I've got two questions revolving around scale. So all of you have grown from $1 million to over 10 million, or top 300 or top 50. As you've grown, how has your communication relationship with Amazon changed? Do you have more communication with them? Is it different? The second question revolves around Seller Fulfilled Prime. For those of you that are merchant fulfilling, as your volume of that has grown, at what point did you suddenly get a dramatically better contract from UPS or FedEx?
I'm going to leave the Seller Fulfilled Prime to Mindy, but as far as the communication with Amazon, you do get better communication with Amazon, but you have to understand that you are just one small cog in this huge machine. And there are times where I'll get an Amazon account rep and I'll build a great relationship with them and the communication is great, and all of a sudden I send an email and they're no longer my rep or they're no longer with Amazon.
You've been graduated.
Yeah. The longevity of any one person in any one position in Amazon is very short. Don't get too attached to too many people because you're going to be disappointed.
It's true.
To answer both questions, so the connections that you make at Amazon, as you said, it could be very short term. You want to build as many connections as possible and gather information. And I heard somebody say recently, everybody has a boss, so we go after the boss. And then regarding Seller Fulfilled Prime, the rates are a lot cheaper because Amazon does want you to be able to offer Prime. I don't know how they feel about that versus FBA, but obviously if they are offering it, they are encouraging it. The rates are cheaper. It depends on when you actually receive the order, buy the shipping label by Amazon, which it has to be bought by Amazon at least 95% of the time. You can't cancel more than 1% of the orders. So there are some metrics in place, But it is cheaper. It certainly is cheaper, and it also depends on where you're shipping it to, where your fulfillment centers are, but there is a much more affordable option. And as I mentioned earlier, we break it out into multiple templates where cheaper items will go on one template, more expensive on the other. So there are ways around it, but the rates are definitely not, it's cheaper than what your normal rates would be. Amazon is working with you, so.
I want to actually throw two tidbits out there for the question you mentioned just briefly on shipping, and I don't know that a lot of sellers necessarily know this. Negotiate as often as possible. Every price that you have, whether it's with UPS, FedEx, the post office, they're all negotiable. If you're really small and you're first starting out, I'll give you two tips, one for UPS and one for the post office. For UPS, if you get an eBay account, you automatically are qualified for a 34% discount with UPS. You don't have to do anything to get that other than to have an eBay account. And then you can use that UPS account to continue to do shipping. So that's going to get you right out of the gate with a better rate than you would just if you applied for the regular UPS account. After that, you can negotiate once you go past certain levels. With the post office, if you use ShipStation, and it's not exclusive to ShipStation, there are many shipping providers which can jump you to commercial plus pricing with the post office, which is automatically, again, right out of the gate, you start with a lower rate than maybe some of the larger sellers have had, but definitely get those low shipping rates, and I don't care what your UPS rep tells you, there is a lower rate, always.
I'll tell you, with the post office, there's 4 rates that you guys can get from the post office. There's what they call base or counter rates, which is what everybody pays when they walk up to the counter. Then there's a commercial base rate, which is the discounted rate, but what they're going to make you think is that is the commercial rate. Then there's commercial plus rate, which is better than commercial base rate. And then the 4th one is negotiated rates, which means you have to be doing pretty much $100,000 a month plus in order to get those kind of rates. So, anybody in this room, if you're FBA, you're really not going to have to worry about that too much, but your goal would be to get the commercial plus rate, which would be pretty much the best rate. And those are available through like ShipStation, Stamps.com, and stuff like that.
Hi, go ahead.
Hi. My question is for Michael, actually, because I'm also in the toy and children market. So you mentioned something about license. Now, I was at a trade show at one time, and this was when the Frozen was really hot, and I wanted to get this product, but they said I had to get a license, and I didn't know anything about that.
Who said you had to get a license?
The seller that was at the show.
Okay, maybe you didn't understand. So the way licensing works is the manufacturer will get the license from the licensor. So for example, with Frozen, Disney owns Frozen. So in the costume world, it was Disguise, and in the toy world, it was Mattel. So Mattel is the toy licensor, Disguise is the costume licensor. It may have been that they were asking, in order for you to buy from those companies, you're going to need a business license and a reseller license, which you would get from your local government. You don't need a license to sell the Disney products because those licenses are covered by the license that the manufacturer gets for you. If you go one step further and you want to start importing your own products, then you would need to go to the actual brand owner and get an agreement. But if you're just buying commodity products here in the U.S., then you're not required to deal with the licensor. So
Okay.
I don't know what license they were asking you to get.
Okay, like it had the Elsa on it, so,
I'm sorry, what?
the character Elsa. On
Right.
The,
I mean, let me ask you a question. Were they licensed by Disney? Because
they had this product and it had Elsa on it, and I said, I like that, I want
Okay.
to buy that.
So here's the thing.
And they said I couldn't, and they said they don't have the license. They asked me to get the
Okay,
license.
right. Then it's never going to happen. I can tell you, unless you've got huge deep pockets, you're never going to get a licensing deal with Disney. There's a lot of licenses out there, though. For example, you could sell an Elsa wig, you could sell an Elsa costume, and you are not infringing on any license. However, the minute you say it's a Frozen Elsa, now you have a problem. Then there's other things, for example, like Snow White. Everyone assumes Snow White is owned by Disney, and Snow White is public domain. So these are licensing laws that you would really need to understand, like what's legal and what's not. But the big question you need to know, and all you need to ask the manufacturer, is do you have the right to sell this licensed product? And if their answer is no, walk away.
Okay, all right. Anyway, I'm an ASM. If anybody is from ASM, I'd like to say hi.
Hi.
Hi. I have two questions.
Okay.
The first is, obviously, FBA offers huge benefits, but it also forces you to give up any control regarding the returns process. And we found that many things get accepted for returns by the returns team at Amazon that we wouldn't allow to go back into stock because they're either customer damage or they look used or they're entirely the wrong item. I'm sure you've all experienced this. How do you deal with that problem? I mean, when we have tried to request, at times when we're contacted directly by a customer who informs us of a damage, but they've already shipped it back, if we try to retrieve it, it's like we just often go in circles. It's very
Yeah.
hard to track down.
My
and
best
request
question,
it.
my best answer to that is welcome to Amazon. A customer has 30 days for any reason, they don't even have to give a reason. They can say, I want to return this because the sky is blue.
But I meant more about
what
like
category are you selling it?
how do you prevent those items, getting put
I'm
back
sorry,
into
what
your inventory?
category are you selling it?
Apparel and accessories.
Okay, apparel especially, one of the worst categories for returns, because not only do they have 30 days to return for any reason, but you also pay the shipping, both ways.
Yeah, so what you're asking is how do you prevent it, and you can't,
But-
to be honest. So I was on a call with Amazon a couple weeks ago, and I was shocked when I thought what I heard them say was that there was a minimum 3 scan before it would be removed from your inventory.
A what?
Minimum of 3 scans, meaning I bought it, return it, scanned once. Mike buys it, returns it, that's scan 2. Barry buys it, returns it, that's scan 3, and then it gets pulled. So that's, and I was on the team, and so I was shocked to hear that if there's any truth to that or not. But the bottom line is there's nothing that you're going to be able to do to intercept that or prevent it from getting back into your inventory unless it's really clearly damaged in some fashion that the associate sees it and knows that it should be put back into your inventory.
But then, but that affects metrics if it goes to another customer
Yes.
and then
Yes.
It does.
Do you have Amazon putting it back into your merchant?
we've had repackaging turned off forever.
Yeah, turn it
Right.
But
off. Yeah.
still, but
Yeah.
they'll,
They still
Don't
do it,
ever
though.
use
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's a
No,
terrible
but
thing to use.
it
The
doesn't
other
change the
thing-
fact that
Just because you have repackaging turned off, you have to understand these guys are Amazon warehouse employees, probably getting paid minimum wage, that don't care whether it goes in, goes back, or goes back to you. Their job is to get it processed as fast as possible.
Yeah, and they did recognize the higher return rates in some categories like apparel, so they did remove, there used to be the thing called the POP score, do you remember that? The perfect order percentage, where if even if an item was returned for nothing that you did, it was still damaging your account, and if your POP score dropped below like 92%, and it could start impacting your buy box ability and things like, so they got rid of that, and I think it was partly because there are higher return rates in other categories, and apparel is one of those.
But you can get reimbursed for bad returns, though. I mean, if you
Yes.
get damaged items back, all you got to do is just take a picture of the code that's on there. It's not an FN SKU, and it's not an ASIN, it's not your SKU. There's a sticker that's got some kind of number on there, and anything that you get back from FBA. Take a picture of that, take a picture of the invoice that came back from Amazon, the FBA return, and take a picture of the item. Open up a case, you will get reimbursed.
the Amazon's terms of service do not refund for customer damaged items. If they determine that it's customer damaged, you don't get refunded. But that's not even, I guess
They accepted the return.
I don't know.
Sometimes in the terms of service, they have the right.
It's hit or miss, but if you
No,
would get it, that would be the way to do it. You're right. You're not always going to get reimbursed.
Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge.
As much as I hate to say it, I mean, costumes falls into the
Correct.
apparel category. Electronics and apparel are some of the 2 worst categories for returns.
And I just had another question for Michael as a follow-up from your presentation earlier. You were talking about building a lean operation, and you spoke about your Amazon auditors and your warehouse team, but you didn't address sourcing and just financial management and those other aspects. And I was just curious.
You're looking at it.
Okay.
No, I've done everything. I've had every hat in the company, but at this point, I do all the sourcing myself. I am the buyer. I buy everything. I look at everything. I run, so when reports are run, they come to me and I decide what gets bought. That's essentially my duty in the company is I am the buyer. The finance, my wife goes in there and cuts checks when she needs to, and that's pretty much it. And in all honesty, for the volume we do, we still can manage it with just that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All of you mentioned reviews as making change in your buying decision or restocking decisions, but does any of you try to remove reviews that are clearly not relating to the product? And if so, any kind of best practice in removing hurting reviews that are not relevant to the product or just not?
It's hit or miss. Reviews are notoriously difficult to get removed. They can be removed. I'll give you a little bit of hope. It's possible. It's going to depend on how bad it is, how off it is in relation to what the product is and what you should be doing with reviews, and it'll depend on the rep that actually handles the case. You could have some luck, don't try it too many times, but you could have some luck with allowing that case to close once they have denied your request to remove the review and try to open a case again. Don't try that too often, but sometimes you'll get a better rep who better understands what you're trying to tell them, and you could get it removed, but not that often.
It's also important to recognize if there's a product review left as seller feedback, you can have that removed. And if there is a seller feedback left on a product, you can have that removed.
One of the things is it never hurts to open the case. Cases are perfectly fine to open as long as they're legitimate cases. And if you open the case with Amazon, and like you said, there's times where we don't get the resolution we feel is fair with the case. We let the case close, wait a couple days, open it up, and you'll get a completely different answer.
I don't know if it doesn't hurt to open a case.
Right. I was going to say.
The reason why I say that is in the last week, 2 weeks, where they've gone after third-party solutions or opening FBA cases, I could see with the number of sellers on there that the sellers that are opening bad cases, poorly researched cases, where I do think that could damage your account in some fashion.
So I'm a big fan of reimbursements. There's two things that have happened. One is about a month and a half ago, there was one, I'm not going to use the names, but there was one particular service that removes or goes after reimbursements with Amazon.
Yep.
Their particular domain got blocked.
Yep.
So we're able to just create a new user on your account, your domain, and then they continue to do their work through there. And then I know which one you're talking about that just happened a week ago. There's a different service where they got blocked. Now, what Michael said is true. You can open as many cases as you want.
Absolutely.
But
Of course.
that being said, when I first discovered the joy of reimbursements, I went a little bit crazy, and I had Amazon actually call me. There was somebody that called me and said, "Okay, we're going to combine these 150 cases, and and if you don't mind, just make sure you're researching them a little more carefully."
Sure.
They were all legitimate, but
Sure. I think my only message is just do your research and open a really good case as opposed to just starting and opening a bunch of cases.
The big thing is a sniff test. Just look at it and say, does this look legitimate to me, or am I just stretching? And if the answer is I'm just stretching, walk away. Don't risk your account over something stupid.
Yeah, for sure.
And what you say is that sometimes they do remove it, but it's kind of a hit and miss.
There's a rule book, a policy book for the Amazon reps on how they're supposed to do things, and then there's the way that they actually do things. And a lot of times they don't even understand what you're telling them. And when they don't understand the question, they just close it, basically saying we're not going to do anything because. And it's not that you're wrong or right; it's I don't understand.
Thank you.
Definitely, yeah. Hi, Rick. Yes.
Three-part question, but they're all closely related. First question, I've heard at multiple conferences now, people say that Amazon is a sales channel, and if you only sell on Amazon, you don't have a business. I'm interested in how you guys interpret that. Assuming that you answer, yes, I have a business, what do you view as your true differentiators as a business? And then third part, how optimistic are you about the future of your business?
All right, so my rule of thumb about a business, and I know a lot of people that strictly sell on Amazon, and by all means, it is a business. If you get up and you spend 40 hours plus a week doing what you're doing, it's a business. My differentiation is are you doing this from a bedroom in your house and you're just shipping products from the manufacturer to Amazon and you have no warehouse facility, no employees, and you just hope to make a few bucks? Or do you actually have a warehouse facility? Do you actually wake up, go to work every day? Do you have employees? Do you have a set schedule? so there's a huge differentiation. People that are drop shippers or basically are working out of an office and don't have any real presence, no, to me that's not a business. And Amazon kind of, they want you to have a warehouse because they want you to do, they're not going to tell you yes or no either way. But if you were to ask what I consider a business is, do you actually have a physical presence outside of Amazon?
I was going to touch on the fact that people put all their eggs in one basket, and I've seen many people get shut down by a simple email, and their whole business goes away.
Yes.
So the way I interpret a business is, if you have, different eggs in different baskets, and you have a lot of different strategies and a lot of things going for you, then you have a business. But you could just be an Amazon seller. Because keep in mind, the Amazon customer is not necessarily your customer, it's Amazon's customer. That's Amazon's business, not yours. Yeah. So you can be an asset to it, but if you can get shut down, like I said, or if there are any other things that can shut you down, in a single day, you're putting yourself at risk, and it's very hard to call that a business. But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, and I woke up this morning to a message from a friend of mine who's actually in this room right now. Dear seller, you may no longer sell on Amazon. That was it. There was no other information in that message. Now, turns out it was actually probably just a glitch, which that happens too. Amazon likes to sort of wake you up in the morning sometimes. But the fact is that email could just as easily have been real. And as Mendy said, it happens all the time. I'd like to believe that I'm doing everything that I can in my business to prevent that kind of thing from happening, and I am. I'm trying as hard as I can. I do try to follow Amazon's guidelines to the very best of my ability, but yeah, I think you really, really, really need to diversify. And until, I don't think I have a business yet. I really don't. I really think that there's a lot more work to be done. There's a lot of channels out there. There's a lot of different ways to diversify, and I definitely encourage you to do so, if you can.
If you guys saw the slide I had today, 91.8% of my business is Amazon FBA, which means that 8.2% is non-Amazon. And I get asked the question by hundreds of people, including my own employees, why don't we just shut down everybody else and sell on Amazon? And the answer is because I just never want to have all my eggs in one basket. And should I ever get that little red flag in the morning that says you've been suspended, I want to know that that other 8% will become 100%.
Sure. That makes sense. We have, thank you, gentlemen. We've reached to the end, I've been told. I think there was another question, but the good part is the bar is open.